Okay, welcome to the video for the algebra consolidation sheet. Okay, so hopefully you've had to go at this sheet already, and then this video should be for you to use to check your answers to see how you've done. So I'll just be going through each section separately. Okay, so section 1 then, sequences. All right, it says write down the next term in each of the following sequences, giving a reason for your answer. So it's important not to overcomplicate this one. Okay, literally just do as it's saying. So all the question is asking for is what is the next number in the sequence, and a reason for your answer. Well, really that just means the rule. Okay, so the reason for your answer is the rule. So the first thing you've got to look at is what is the pattern in each of the sequences. Okay, so hopefully in sequence A, you can see straight away that it's -5 each time. Okay, so if I was taking 5 away, the next number in the sequence would be 18, because 23 minus 5 is 18, and you can just say then for your reason that it's subtract 5. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Then for the next one, okay, it goes up by 3 the first time, doesn't it? Then it goes up by 6. Then it goes up by 12. So it's not going up by the same amount each time. So it's definitely not add or subtract this time. But hopefully what you can notice is that if I double the first one, I get the second one. If you double the second one, you get the third one, and then so on. So the rule is that we multiply them by 2. Okay, so the next number in the sequence on this one would be 48. And then you can say for your reason, multiply by 2. All right, or if you want to write double instead, obviously that's the same thing, isn't it? Okay, then C and D also. So question C, look, if you have a look at what's happening in each one, it's going up by 3 each time. Okay, so this one should be 20, and then you can say that it's add 3. And then question D says work out the 8th term in the sequence. Okay, so the 8th term just means the 8th number. All right, so this is the first term, this is the second term, the third term, the fourth term, the 5th term, and then so on. Okay, so the 8th term in this sequence, well, because we know it's going up by 3, the 6th would be 23, wouldn't it? The 7th would be 26. So the 8th term should be 29. Okay, it's 3 more terms after this one, and we know that each term goes up by 3. So 3 3s are 9, isn't it? So just add 9 onto the 20. It's definitely 29. Okay, so that's the first section. The second section then is to do with substitution. Okay, so substitution is just replacing letters for numbers. So in the next few questions that we look at now, it says P equals 6, look, Q equals 7, and R equals 2, and we need to work out these different answers. Okay, so for A, all right, it's a really straightforward one to start with. You're told that P equals 6, so instead of P, I'm writing 6. We're told that Q equals 7, so instead of Q, I'm writing 7. And we're told that R equals 2, so instead of R, I'm writing 2. Okay, so then 6 plus 7 is 13, minus 2 is 11, and that's the answer. Okay, for question B, right, we're told in the question here, look, that P equals 6. But that doesn't mean that this is 56, which is a common mistake. Okay, you've got to remember in algebra that when the symbols are next to each other, okay, when 2 terms are next to each other with nothing in between, so there's no add or subtract in between, okay, it always means multiply. So this 5p here actually means 5 multiplied by p. Okay, so the answer is not 56 just by replacing that with a 6. Okay, if it's 5 times by p and p is 6, then it's actually 5 times 6. Okay, so the answer would be 30. So you've got to make sure you remember there's 2 things next to each other like that with no symbol in between. It means multiply. So 5p means 5 multiplied by p. Okay, so that's how you would do that one. For question C then, if we have a look at this one here, look. So 4q, similar to how we just did 5p. Now 4q means 4 multiplied by q. Okay, well, we know that q is 7. So this becomes 4 times by 7, and then plus r, which is 2. Okay, well, 4 7s are 28, right? Plus 2 is 30. And then for question D, all right, it's 3p minus 6r. So 3p means 3 times p, and 6r means 6 times r. So the best way to do this one would be to work out each individual one. So work out what 3 times P is, work out what 6 times R is, and then subtract them from each other. Okay, so if P is 6, then this becomes 3 times 6. And then if R is 2, then that's 6 times 2. Okay, so 3 6s are 18. 6 times 2 is 12. So 18, take away 12 is 6. Okay. Right, moving on then. So still using the same values for P, Q, and R, just slightly different in terms of how we do this now. So for question E here, look, PQ, there's no symbol in between, is there? So it means multiply. So PQ means P multiplied by Q. Okay, well, we can see that P is 6, Q is 7, 6 7s are 42. That's how you answer that one. Okay, next one. F says Q squared minus R squared. So for this question, you've got to make sure that you remember that squared doesn't mean times by 2, even though there's a little 2 there. So this is not Q times by 2. Okay, squared, when you square something, you multiply it by itself. So Q squared means Q multiplied by Q. And R squared means R multiplied by R. Okay, so if we substitute those numbers in now, Q is 7, so this becomes 7 times 7. And then if R is 2, that's 2 times 2, and we just subtract those answers from each other then. Okay, so 7 times 7 is 49, 2 times 2 is 4, so the answer is 45. Okay, on to G then. So you've got 2 choices with this one, really. You can either expand the bracket first, if you remember doing that in the other algebra stuff that we've done in the past, or do the work out answer to the bracket and then multiply it by 3. So this means 3 multiplied by the answer to the bracket, because have a look here, like in between the 3 and the bracket, there's no symbol. So that means it's multiply, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to do 3 multiplied by Q plus R. Okay, well, Q plus R is 7 plus 2. So if you think of bid mass now, the bracket has to be done first, doesn't it? So the answer should just be 3 multiplied by 9, because 7 plus 2 is 9, isn't it? 3 times 9 is 27. And then for question H, okay, it says P plus Q plus R all over 5. So we haven't done any dividing yet in this section, and you need to remember that this fraction line here, look, that means divide, isn't it? So you're unlikely in algebra to see the actual divide symbol. It's usually written as a fraction instead. Okay, so P plus Q plus R over 5 means P plus Q plus R divided by 5. Okay, so if P is 6, okay, Q is 7, R is 2, we're adding all of those together and then dividing by 5. Okay, well, 6 plus 7 plus 2 is 15. 15 divided by 5, how many 5s are in 15? Is 3. All right, so a couple of important points to remember for substitution is if they're next to each other with no symbol in between, it means multiply. Squared means times by itself, and any fractions, fraction line always means divide. Okay, so that is that section. Moving on then, so multiples, factors, and primes. All right, so this question says, from the list of numbers above, select a multiple of 6, a factor of 18, and a prime number between 10 and 20. Okay, well, we need to understand what each of these mean first of all. Okay, so a multiple means a number in the times table. Okay, so if I wanted a multiple of 6, that means it's a number that's in the 6 times table. If I want a multiple of 15, it's a number that's in the 15 times table. Okay, so if we have a look at this list now, all right, there may be more than one correct answer, but we're looking for now for part A, a number in this list that is in the 6 times table. Okay, well, 36 is definitely in the 6 times table. Okay, and 24 is definitely in the 6 times table. So if you need to, just go through each number separately. 5 obviously won't work, 27 won't work, so just go up in your 6 times table. If 27 is not in there, then try the next one if you're really that unsure. Okay, then for part B, it says a factor, so a factor of 18. Okay, so a factor is a number that goes into it. Okay, so it is a number that it can be divided by. So if I asked you for like a factor of 12, that is a number that 12 can be divided by. Okay, so a factor of 18, well, straight away, any number bigger than 18 is going to be ruled out, okay, because for it to be divided by for 18 to be divided by this number, it has to be less than 18. Okay, so go through them separately again if you like. 5 won't work. You can't times 5 by anything to make 18. 27 doesn't work, it's too big. 36 doesn't work, it's too big. 9, okay, well 9 times by 2 is 18, so that'll definitely work. 15 doesn't, 7 doesn't, 11 doesn't, 24 doesn't, 17 doesn't. Okay, so in that list, only the number 9 is a factor of 18, okay? Then question 3 says a prime number, okay? So a prime number, we need to remember this, is a number where only 1 and itself will go into it, okay? So it can be divided by only the number 1 and itself. Okay, so if I was saying the number 13, for example, the only factors of 13, so the only way you can make 13 by multiplying is by using the numbers 1 and the number 13, so itself. Okay, so we're not just looking for a prime number here, we're looking for a prime number between 10 and 20. So straight away, when we go through this list now, any number that's not between 10 and 20 can be ruled out, all right? So 5 won't work. 27 won't work, 36 won't work, 9 won't work. Right, 15 is the first one in the list here. Look, that's between 10 and 20, but that doesn't mean that it's prime. Okay, so if you think of 15, you can do 1 times 15 to make 15, but you can also do 3 times 5, so that doesn't work. Okay, 7's not between 10 and 20. Right, 11 is between 10 and 20 now, and 11 is a prime number, because the only way you can make 11 by multiplying is by doing 1 times 11, isn't it? Okay, 24 is too big. And then in this one, 17 also works, because 17 is a prime number. You can only make 17 by multiplying 1 times 17, and it's in between 10 and 20. Okay, so that's what you can do for that one. Okay, on to the next section then, which is on coordinates. Okay, so for this one, I put the questions on this slide, and then the grid is on the next slide, okay? And just ignore this line for now, that's for something a little bit later on. Okay, so write down the coordinates of point A is the first one. Well, the first thing you need to remember is when we do coordinates, it has in a bracket with a comma in between, but you've got to remember that it's always the x value first and the y value afterwards, okay? So the x value is the value going across, it's the horizontal movement, and then the y value is the vertical movement. All right, and no doubt you've probably heard before the saying along the corridor and up the stairs. So that's how we write the coordinates down. Okay, so point A is here, look. So we're using this rule of along the corridor and then up the stairs. It should be 1 and 4, because you go 1 across and 4 up. Okay, so it's important that that's what you do, because if you write 4 and 1, well, 4 and 1 is actually 4 across and 1 up, which would be there, look. That's not the same place, is it? So it's important that it's along the corridor first, up the stairs afterwards. So X movement, then Y movement. So the coordinates of A should be 1, 4. Okay, so 1, 4, job done. Right, on to B then. So if we find B, B is actually this one here, look. Even though the B is not that close to the X, that's the one that we're talking about. Okay, so for this one, that would be 1, but then 0. Because it's 1 on the x-axis, isn't it? But it's 0 on the y-axis. It doesn't go up or down at all. So we'd have to make sure that we write it as such. So back to here should be 1 and 0. Okay, not 0, 1. 0, 1 would move it to here instead, look. All right, so it's always the x value first. Okay, the next one says write down the coordinates of point C. So point C is over here. Okay, the coordinates of point C should be -4 and 2. Okay, horizontal movement first, vertical movement afterwards. So -4, 2 should be the answer for that one. Okay, not 2 minus 4. Just to show you, 2 minus 4 would be down here. Okay, so get them the right way around. The next one then is D. So that's the point D there, look. This one, horizontal movement first is -2. Then vertical movement is -4. So it is -2, -4. All right, not the other way around. The other way around would be, if I did -4, -2 instead, that would end up here, look, which is not the same thing, is it? Okay, so writing down the coordinates of points should be fairly simple anyway. Right, question E says, draw the line CD and write the coordinates of the midpoint of the line. So it tells you to draw the line, okay? So that's what you have to do. Don't just guess what the midpoint is going to be. If the line was there, draw the actual line, all right? So I've pre-done this on here because it's quite difficult when recording the video to draw a straight line. So I've already done the straight line here, okay? So this is the straight line, just using a ruler from C to D. That's what the line CD means, just from C to D. Okay, so if I said draw the line AD, you would draw a line from A to D, and so on. All right. Hopefully you can see then the midpoint of this line is that point there. Okay, that's the middle of that line, the midpoint. So the question says to write down the coordinates of that point. Well, the coordinates of that point are -3, -1, because it's 3 to the left, 1 down. Okay, so -3, -1. Okay, then question F says plot the point 5 -4, label the point E. So 5 -4. All right, 5 means 5 here on X, -4 means down here. Okay, so that is the point E, making sure that it's 5 on the horizontal and -4 on the vertical. Okay, if you got those the wrong way around, you would be having the answer up here somewhere, look, which is not the same thing. So that's where point E should have went. Okay, moving on then. So simplifying algebraic terms. All right, it says simplify the following expressions fully. So when we say simplify in algebra, we mean to collect like terms. So collect together the terms that are the same. All right, and same terms mean the same letter usually. Okay, so collect together the things that are the same. So in question A here, look, there's only W's in the question. So for me to simplify this, all right, if I've got 8W plus 4W minus 3W, okay, well, because all of those are the same, we can just collect them together, all right? So 8 plus 4 gives you 12, doesn't it? But then 12 minus 3 gives you 9, all right? So it's not 8 plus 4 plus 3, because that's not what the question says, is it? It's 8 plus 4 minus 3. Okay, so 8W plus 4W minus 3W is the same as writing 9W. Okay, right, question B, both terms have got an A in them, look. So if I've got 7A and I take 6A away, then that should be fairly obvious, hopefully, that it's just 1A left, all right? When you write 1A, you can just write A on its own. Okay, so any letter on its own with no number in front of it means 1. Okay, so if you see A on its own, that means 1A. Okay. Right, for question C now, this is the first one where the terms are not all the same. So if you have a look at the letters, okay, some of them are B's and some of them are C's. Okay, so you can only collect together the letters of the same look. So when we do this one, okay, we can only collect together the B's with any other B's. Okay, so I always like to get people to circle or put boxes around them. Okay, so you're circling the terms, but also any symbols that are attached to them. Okay, so this is 3B plus another B. So let's do that first. If I got 3B plus another B, that's 4B. And if we have a look at these terms with C's in them now, including the symbols, okay, well, that's plus 4C and plus 5C, or 5 plus 4 is 9, isn't it? So 9C. And note this in here, look, after I've done my circles and my boxes or whatever you want to use, okay, I've included everything in this expression. I haven't missed off any letters or any numbers or any symbols. So it's important that you do the same. Okay, right, for the next one then, we've got T's and U's. So I'm going to circle the T's, including any symbols in front of them. Okay, so this is 6T minus 3T. So I've got to include that minus part there. Okay, so you've got to take note of what the symbols are in the question, because this is not 6T plus 3T, because it clearly doesn't say that. It says 6T minus 3T. Okay, so 6 minus 3 is 3, isn't it? So if you've got 6T and you subtract 3T, you've got 3T left. Then here, collecting together the U's, got 3u plus 5u, sorry, 3u plus 2u, which is 5u. Okay, and it's a positive 5u because 3 plus 2 gives you a positive answer. And again, my boxes or my circles have included everything in that expression. Okay, then the last one for this section, I can see obviously that they're all y's, okay, but when you do this, okay, y and y squared are two different terms. So when you do anything that's got a squared in there, you can only collect it with anything else that's got a squared in there. So in this case, okay, the y squared and that y squared there, they're terms that are the same because they're both y squared. All right, so 3y squared plus another 2y squared, hopefully you can figure out, is 5y squared. And then this 4y on its own, we can't add that to y squared, so we just write plus 4y. Okay, so the answer is not 9y squared. That would only be if this y was a squared as well, which is not. Okay, so that's how we collect like terms. Okay, moving on then. So solving linear equations. These are one-step equations first of all. Okay, so when you solve equations, you always need to remember your inverse operations. Okay, so just the opposites. So the opposite of add is subtract. The opposite of multiply is divide, and so on. Okay, so for question D, solve just means find the value of. So we need to find the value of each letter in these questions. So for question D, look, it says x plus 12 equals 31. So something plus 12 equals 31. I'm just going to rewrite it. Okay, so something plus 12 equals 31. Well, the best thing to do for this one is do the inverse of adding 12. Okay, so the opposite of adding 12 is to subtract 12. So if we subtract 12 from both sides, okay, 31 minus 12, okay, we'll use the column method if you need to, should be 19. So x has to be 19. Okay, and it's always important with these questions is whatever you're saying the solution is, put it back into the equation to make sure it works. So if x is 19, does 19 plus 12 give you 31? Well, yes, it does. So you know that's the right answer. That's the only correct answer x can be for that one. Okay. Right, question E. Remember we discussed earlier on in this video, the 4x means 4 times by x, okay, or x times by 4, whatever. So if 4x equals 20, okay, the inverse of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. So because all this is saying is 4 times by a number equals 20. Okay, well the opposite of timesing by 4 is to divide. So x equals 20 divided by 4, which is 5. Okay, 4 times 5 is 20. That's the only correct answer that it can be. And for question F, we've got w over 2 equals 6. Remember, this fraction line means divide, isn't it? So this question says w divided by 2 equals 6. Well, the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying. So w equals 6 times 2, which is 12. Put that back into the equation to check it works. If w is 12, does 12 divided by 2 give you 6? Yes, it does. Okay, next section here then. So still on solving one-step equations, all right? So for question G now, if I just rewrite it, all right, it's written the other way around to what we used to in the previous questions, but it still makes no difference to what we're doing. If you really want to make it easier, you can write it the other way around, which is what some people would prefer to do, okay? So it says f plus 4 equals 13. Well, the opposite of adding 4, excuse me, the opposite of adding 4 is subtracting it. So f must equal 9, because that's what 13 minus 4 gives you. And then if we're saying f equals 9, does 9 plus 4 give you 13? Yes, it does. That's the answer. Okay. For question H then, I would probably advise that you rewrite it the other way around as well. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so instead of writing 16 equals 19 minus e, I'm going to write 19 minus e equals 16. So with this one now, I would use what I call the cover-up method, which would be, if you just follow what this is saying, remember e is just a number, isn't it? So 19 minus something equals 16. Well, just cover the e up. Okay, and think about what you would need to subtract from 19 to make 16. hopefully you can spot straight away that if you're on 19, just think of a number line. If you're on 19 and you're trying to get to 16, you'd have to subtract 3, wouldn't you? So that means E must equal 3, okay, because 19 minus 3 is 16, okay? And then question I says T plus 3 equals 1. So T plus 3 equals 1. Something plus 3 equals 1. Well, the opposite of adding 3 is to subtract. So T equals, right, the answer is not 2 because 1 take away 3 doesn't give you 2, does it? If you think of a number line again and draw 1, if it's going to help you, if you're on 1 already and you're subtracting 3, then you're moving backwards by 3. So hopefully you can spot that that gives you the answer of minus 2. Okay, 1 minus 3 is minus 2. Okay, the last section then for these consolidation sheet is on solving two-step equations. Okay, so you're still using the inverse operations, but there's 2 things to do to solve the equation instead. So I'm just going to rewrite this one, okay, and remember, solve means we're finding the value of x, aren't we? So we're just going to get rid of everything else apart from the x by doing the inverse. Okay, what I would always say these types of questions is if there's a plus or a minus part, then do that first. Okay, so this says plus 7. We know the opposite of adding 7 is to subtract. So that's what I would want you to do first on this question. Okay, so if we subtract 7 from both sides now, this 7 is going to be changed into a 0, isn't it? So that's going to technically disappear. Okay, so we've still got 4x on this side, look. So you've got to do it 1 step at a time, which is why it's called a 2-step equation. You've got to do 2 steps, okay? You can't do minus 7 here and get rid of the 4 all at the same time. Okay, so do this part first. So 15 minus 7 is 8, isn't it? So now this says 4x equals 8. So we still haven't solved x yet. Okay, but remember 4x means 4 times x. So the opposite of timesing by 4 is dividing by 4. So if we divide both sides by 4 now, we'll get x, which is what we wanted, equals 8 divided by 4 is 2. And still check your answer though, still check that your answer makes sense. Okay, so if x equals 2, if we substitute these numbers in now, if x is 2, 4x means 4 times 2, doesn't it? Which is 8 plus 7 equals 15. That works in that equation, so you know that that's the correct solution. Okay. Right, same thing for question B then. So I'm just going to rewrite it. 5y minus 4 equals 26. So remember, always start with either the plus or the minus in the question. So this minus 4 here, we know the opposite is to add 4. Okay. So we're going to add 4 on to both sides. So we get 5y equals 26 plus 4 is 30, isn't it? And then from there, 5 times by something equals 30. Well, the opposite of timesing by 5 is to divide by 5. So y equals 30 divided by 5 is 6, isn't it? Because 6 times 5 is 30. And again, check whether this is right before you move on. So if y is 6, will that work in this equation? So if y is 6, 5 times 6 is 30. 30 minus 4 is definitely 26. So you know that's the correct solution. Okay, so get used to setting it out like that and doing it 1 step at a time. Don't try and look at the question and just work it out in your head because it can get confusing. Right, moving on then. So question C, all right, it's written in a slightly different way this time, but we can still figure out no problem at all. Okay, so if I rewrite it first of all, 16 minus 3x equals 1, excuse me. Right, so here it's the 16 that we want to get rid of first, isn't it? Okay, so this 16 at the moment is a positive 16 because it's got no symbol in front of it. So the opposite of adding 16 would be to subtract 16. Okay, so it's important now on this side, all we're doing on this side is getting rid of the 16. So the minus and the 3x are still going to stay. Okay, so this is going to say minus 3x equals. Now 1 take away 16 is not 15. Okay, that's 16 take away 1. It's not the same thing, is it? Think of a number line again. If you're on the number 1 on a number line and you subtract 16, so you move backwards by 16, you should get minus 15. Okay, so minus 3x equals minus 15. Okay, well, from here now, we want to get rid of the minus 3, don't we? Minus 3x means minus 3 times x. So the opposite of timesing by minus 3 is to divide by minus 3. Okay, but don't overcomplicate this now, because, right, we're doing a minus and a minus together. So we're doing minus 15 divided by minus 3. Well, hopefully you remember from before in previous lessons that we had that a minus and a minus make a plus. Okay, so really minus 15 divided by minus 3 is exactly the same as 15 divided by 3. Okay, 15 divided by 3 is 5, isn't it? And again, double check this. Okay, double check that works in the question that we're doing. So 16, okay, minus, if x equals 5, then 3 times 5 is 15, isn't it? So 16 minus 15 definitely equals 1. So that's definitely the right answer. So it's super important that you always check your answers afterwards, because there's only one correct solution for each of these equations. Okay, so you've got to put your solution back in to make sure that it works. Because if it doesn't work, then that can't be the answer. So you should try it again. Okay, and then next one, I'm just going to rewrite this one the other way around because I prefer what I'm solving to be on this side. Look, so I'm going to do 2w plus 4 equals 17. Okay, and then we'll just follow exactly the same steps as before. So it's the plus 4 that I want to lose first of all. So that becomes a negative. Okay, so I get 2w equals 17 minus 4. Okay, well 17 minus 4 is 13, isn't it? Okay, so 2w equals 13. And we know that 2w means times, so we're going to divide. All right, and then people can sometimes tend to get confused with this one because we know that 2 doesn't go into 13, okay? But that's no problem. We can either leave the answer as a fraction. Okay, so as a fraction, we would write 13 over 2. Because remember, the fraction line means divide, doesn't it? So we can write 13 over 2, okay? Or divided by 2 is just half in it, isn't it? So half of 13 is 6.5. Doesn't really matter which one we use, to be honest. Okay, but if we double check, right, in this equation again, 17 equals, well, 6.5 times 2 is 13. 13 plus 4 definitely gives you 17. That's right. That's right. Okay, so that's the end of the consolidation sheet now. So make sure that you've had a go at the sheet yourself and then use this to check your answers and see how you've done, because all of these skills in the last 7 sections are going to really help you in the next few lessons, the next few weeks actually, when we move on to algebra. Thank you very much.